Good morning and Happy New Year. My name is Cheryl Hagan, and it's my privilege to be serving as your worship associate this morning. So our theme for the month of January is courage. As we begin 2017, many of you may be thinking about the things you hope to accomplish and the courage and drive you may need to garner to make them happen. If you're anything like me, that resolve will last a few weeks and then... So this year, rather than making specific resolutions, my hope for myself is to live each day courageously, fearlessly, and to accept that I am imperfect and I'm going to make mistakes along the way. At the end of this year, my hope is that somehow I've made a little bit of difference somewhere. So I'd like to share Neil Gaiman's thoughts about this. I hope that in this year to come, you make mistakes. Because if you're making mistakes, then you're making new things, trying new things, learning, living, pushing yourself, changing your world. You're doing things you've never done before, and more importantly, you're doing something. So that's my wish for you and all of us, and my wish for myself. Make new mistakes. Make glorious, amazing mistakes. Make mistakes nobody's ever made before. Don't freeze, don't stop, don't worry that it isn't good enough or isn't perfect, whatever it is, art or love or work or family or life. Whatever it is you're scared of doing, do it. Make your mistakes this coming year and forever. We welcome whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey as a home of liberal spirituality. We're grateful for the religious pluralism that expands our vision and deepens our understanding. Our principles remind us to honor reason and differences and to value and foster social justice, social action, and compassion. Welcome to Tapestry, a Unitarian Universalist congregation.
Let go. Let go of all that binds you, all that burdens you, of what you carry, of all that shames you, of fear, of trespasses and transgressions, of woundedness. Let go of guilt. Let go of anger. Let go of the small-mindedness and pettiness, of ways of being that no longer work for you. Let go of what you cannot change. Let go of regret, of that which haunts you. Let go of pain. Let go of ways in which you missed the mark. Let go. It is a new year, and we are blessed to be here to welcome it together. Welcome to our time to be together in worship. Welcome to Tapestry. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit to join in singing our opening hymn. It's number 368, Now Let Us Sing. And Michael, our guest musician, thank you for being here, is going to play through once for us before we join in singing. Is a responsive reading in your hymnals. It's number 558 for Everything a Season. This will definitely be familiar to you, either from your Hebrew Bible classes or from a very popular song. I'll read the words in regular print and you read the words in italics. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time for war. New Year's has to be one of my favorite holidays, partially because it's a fun time, but it's also a nice unifying holiday. There aren't any religious requirements to alienate anyone, and there's not much to buy except maybe some champagne or a party horn, and it's dead simple. Everyone knows that it's the beginning of a new year. For a lot of people, maybe many of you, the new year is a time for a fresh start. As I thought more about this very secular holiday for us, I realized that this need for a fresh start is echoed over and over again in the religious world. How many of you come from a Catholic background? I know it's a pretty good number. Wow, okay. So one of the most unique and well-known Catholic rituals is confession. Catholics are supposed to visit their priest and review their shortcomings regularly. It's especially important before taking communion. And confession honestly gets a bad rap. It's pretty misunderstood, and the practice changed a lot in Vatican II. Now it's really a pretty simple opportunity to talk to a priest face to face and in a roundabout way talk to God about shortcomings in your life. It's a very brief meeting to get some of your regrets off your chest instead of holding them inside. And it's, like I said, especially important before communion. Getting those regrets out of the way, clear the heart and the mind for a ritual renewal with God. And I know it's a very odd comparison, but celebrating the new year with intention can be similar to the Catholic practice of confession and communion. Now, in the Jewish world, one of the holiest days is Rosh Hashanah. It's sometimes referred to as the Jewish New Year. It's officially the anniversary of the creation of the universe, the day God created Adam and Eve. Now, because the Jewish calendar is different from our own, it floats around a little bit on our calendar. But the similarities are deep. This Jewish New Year is a time for introspection and looking back at the past year and planning changes to make in the new year. It's officially marked by spending the day at the temple and a time of prayer and festive evening meals. But there are two rituals that really symbolize what that is about and kind of what our new year is about. One of those is dipping apples in honey as a symbol of your wishes for a sweet new year. And the other is this ritual of tashlik, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Jewish people find a body of flowing water, and it may be a creek or a river, and they empty their pockets into that river, symbolizing casting off of sins. They usually put small pieces of bread in the pocket beforehand to cast off. This tradition isn't discussed anywhere in the Bible, but it's a long-standing tradition. And then Buddhists around the world also celebrate a new year according to several different local customs wherever they are. Though the traditions vary, according to those local customs, they always look back at the past and plan for the future. This hunger for a fresh start seems to be everywhere. For some, the fresh start is tied to a ritual. For others, a particular day on the calendar marks the appropriate time for renewal. Now, we know that there's nothing magical about January 1st. There's nothing magical about any of the rituals except for the intention that we put into them. Whether it's a date on the calendar or a ritual that we undertake, the power comes in how we interpret the opportunity in this pregnant moment. There's no magic, but a moment can give us a framework. It gives us a structure to look back and review, and it can be a launching pad for something new and different. Not magic, but major opportunity. This Sunday, I want to talk some about the techniques for creating change in our lives. Some of you will connect with this deep desire for a resolution in the new year. Regardless of your resolutions or the calendar, at some point, everyone endeavors to do something different in life. So if you're in the midst of change, I hope this helps. And if you're not, perhaps you can share it with someone who is. I thought about creating change, and the best starting place I could think of was the serenity prayer that's very connected to Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs. It says, we all know this, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Some of us may stumble a little bit at that first line. Some of us stumble at the word prayer. Exploring a little bit, though, about how this prayer works in AA and 12 steps may help us UUs get a better grasp of it. The beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous is that it's a group of people talking candidly about their struggles and where they find hope in the world. For a lot of people, that hope and strength comes in pretty traditional theological packaging. And so a lot of AA meetings take on a pretty religious feel. But there's no set creed. There's only a commitment of a group of people to help one another. That should sound familiar because it's kind of the way I describe Unitarian Universalism. We don't have one particular thing that you have to subscribe to, but we're here to share openly and honestly and help one another along the journey. Connecting with a power greater than ourselves, whether that's God or love or nature, can help us tremendously in having the courage to seek those changes or to carry out those changes that we seek. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Ugh. That first line is a long journey in itself. So much of our life is shaped by things that are out of our control. The family we're born into, the culture, the economic resources, the country, all these things shape us before we even take our first breath. And sometimes what we want to change most are other people in our lives, whether they're friends or foe. I guess one of the hardest things to accept is our inability to change other people. We can provide encouragement and resources, but it's virtually impossible to force another person to change unless they want to themselves. We also can't change the past. Ever. Every one of us has regrets, a bad decision here and there. We can do our best to mend relationships that have been damaged, but the past is the past. And there's no eraser in life. There's nothing we can do to change it. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. One of those things that we can't change is also timing. Picking the right time to change is critical to success. Right now may not be the right time. Maybe it's next week or next year. This is sort of a silly example, but I recently heard of someone who's taking a very serious effort to create change, and she plans to start a strict vegan, sugar-free diet to improve her health. Like, this is a doctor-recommended, necessary thing. And she's ready to make that step on January 3rd. Yes. January 3rd is the big day because, you see, January 2nd is the New Year's Day parade, and based on long-standing tradition, going to the parade requires a trip to the International House of Pancakes. Let's face it, there is nothing vegan or sugar-free about the International House of Pancakes. So the diet starts January 3rd. It's a silly example, but timing is everything. When we set out to create change, it's helpful to know the things that are set in stone, things like major holidays or deeply held traditions. And it's best to work around those, at least for a while, the things that we can't control. The sooner we accept the things that we can't change, the sooner we can move toward focusing on the things we can. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "All great ages have been ages of belief." I mean, where there were any extraordinary power of performance, when great national movements began, when arts appeared, when heroes existed, when poems were made, the human soul was in earnest. Earnest. It's a very helpful way of describing the type of courage that change requires. It's about honestly embracing your convictions and living them out in the world. Oftentimes when we talk about change, we get stuck thinking that it's just hard work and determination and sheer willpower. But it really takes courage to honestly face our shortcomings. We need opportunities to be honest in the ways that we're sometimes uncomfortable for family and friends. I think a handful of people here I've talked to have been watching the TV show This Is Us. Yeah, I've been watching it. It's a little overdramatic, but I'm enjoying it. One of the main characters in this show is severely overweight, and she's struggled her entire life to get her diet under control. Now, the unique thing about this show and why I'm really enjoying it is that it happens in two different time frames. One is the current time frame where you see these characters as adults, but another half of the show happens 30 years prior, and you get to see these adult characters in their childhood as they're developing. You get to see this particular woman struggle with weight control as an adult and as a young child. So in this scene that I'm referring to, this overweight character meets with a surgeon to discuss gastric bypass surgery, and her mom goes with her for the meeting. And as the woman is describing her background and her challenges, the mother has this deep inability to listen to the depth of her daughter's challenge. She even argues with her daughter, insisting that the problem isn't that bad. It's a pretty upsetting scene. The mother is forced, in a way, to recognize that some of her daughter's struggles with weight are based on skills that she didn't get as a child. Now, for a huge variety of reasons, it's hard for the people closest to us to deal with the truth of our challenges. Sometimes loved ones have enabled those unhealthy habits in us. Sometimes loved ones just can't absorb the depth of that challenge. It hurts too much. And sometimes the thing that we need to change is so shameful, it's been hidden, even from our closest friends. It's hard for those closest to support major change, but we can't change completely on our own. That's why finding support is really important. Now, I think more than ever, there are online support communities for just about every type of change you can think of. I think we have a habit of thinking that computers separate and divide us, but in some pretty magical ways, they can connect us with other people in the same boat. Addictions of every kind of substance, of addiction to gambling or pornography or debt. There are online support communities for overeating, overcoming abusive relationships, increasing exercise, starting new hobbies, improving parenting, starting meditation. Whatever the change is that you want to make, you're not alone. It's almost guaranteed that you will find other people out there and be more successful if you do. You can plug into a community of other people who understand your challenges and your goal. Now, I think outside of addiction, most of the challenges that most of us want take incremental steps. The courage required is really more like persistence to make the right decision over and over and over. It takes about a month to form a new habit. Maybe it's going to the gym or reading more. It takes a month for your mind to realize, oh yeah, this is what I do this time of the day. Oh yeah, this is what kind of person I am. That means for 30 days, we have to talk ourselves into a new, uncomfortable way of doing things. Making big changes about accumulating countless small decisions, day by day. And if we're lucky, those step-by-step incremental changes of habit accumulate into some pretty major shifts in life. New habits can send us into a completely new direction. One of the strangest things about change is that sometimes they send us in an unfamiliar and unpredicted direction. Even when the change seems small or an isolated piece of our life, it often has ripple effects that can shift us in unpredictable ways. A long time ago, when I was in seminary, I witnessed this kind of change very closely and personally in a friend. Over the course of about a year and a half, my then roommate lost nearly 100 pounds. As we shared a refrigerator and a kitchen and spent a lot of time together, I saw firsthand how much effort this took in her diet. Every single thing that she ate was a compromise with points added up throughout the day. It was kind of harsh, but she was enjoying this and she was making great progress. What was especially eye-opening, though, was watching the transformation of people around her. She was always a pretty girl and woman, and she had always been overweight. Losing 100 pounds completely changed the way the world responded to her, especially men. And I'm sure that had its delightful moments, but what an adjustment. Suddenly, at 30 years old, she had to navigate a world as a highly sexualized woman. Having been, in a very strange way, protected by her weight as an adolescent, she had never learned how to navigate this world as that person. From one perspective, it was just the hard work of standard weight loss, of diet and exercise. From another perspective, though, this change in her lifestyle sent her into a whole new territory of unknown challenges. It was hard. We often forget that changing one thing in life can send us into unknown territory. Charting a new course in life without a map or a path to follow takes a whole lot of courage. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Making a New Year's resolution is great. Making change in our lives is great, and it's a noble endeavor. Just be sure that it is something that you really have the power to change. And make sure that it is your goal. Make sure it's something that draws you toward being the person that you feel called to be. It's not easy to cut through the barrage of marketing these days. Everyone wants to sell you a shinier, slimmer, smarter, happier, wealthier, prettier, stronger, better version of you. As if by waving a magic wand or swiping a credit card, you can fundamentally change. If change is on your agenda, think it through for yourself. Be sure it's something that you want and you need. And then talk it through with someone who has been there. They may be complete strangers, but talk to someone who knows that particular struggle. And once you've decided and set your mind to it, take it step by step. We're here to support you along the way. Whether we know your struggle or not, each and every person in this room genuinely wants you to succeed in being the best, fullest version of yourself you can be. Amen.